Welcome, everyone. My name is Greg Alexander. I am the CEO of SBI, a sales and marketing consulting firm committed to helping you make your number. You are watching SBI TV. This is a monthly web TV show featuring guests just like you, executives trying to grow their revenues. By tuning in each month, you can peek behind the scenes and watch your peers discuss their strategies for making their numbers. On today's show, we have a very special guest. Todd Cione is the Chief Revenue Officer at Rackspace, a $1.8 billion provider of cloud computing services with 6,000 employees, who has become the #1 provider of managed cloud services. He oversees Rackspace marketing, communications globally, as well as the direct and indirect sales channel for the Americas. He's responsible for crafting, articulating, and executing Rackspace's differentiated go-to-market strategy and for delivering growth through all sales channels and from all customer segments. Todd joined Rackspace in 2013 as the Senior Vice President of Acquisition Sales, and then moved on to become the Senior VP of Sales for the Americas region, where he helped launch the managed cloud strategy and offering to customers and partners across all segments. He brings more than 20 years of technology market experience, serving customers and partners globally, while building and developing integrated sales, marketing, and partner teams. Before joining Rackspace, Todd spent 15 years at Microsoft, most recently as the Asia Pacific Marketing and Operations Leader based in Singapore, where he was responsible for $4 billion in revenue from sales of software, cloud, and services, as well as enterprise services. Before that, he led Microsoft enterprise and mid-market sales, partner, and marketing organizations in the Asia Pacific region and the United States. Todd is a graduate of Baylor University with a degree in English and business. The reason I asked Todd to be on this show is because he has 3 unique experiences that makes him an authority on today's topic, building a team of A players. These experiences are as follows. Number 1, Todd is the Chief Revenue Officer, which means he leads both marketing and sales. To make your number, you need superstar talent in both organizations, not just the sales force. Number 2, Todd has done it, quote, the old way and, quote, the new way. So what do I mean by this? He led teams at Microsoft for 15 years who, as the dominant technology company of that era, mastered the go-to-market models of yesterday. Today, he leads the go-to-market teams at a pure-play cloud company who helped invent this era's go-to-market model. And lastly, number 3, Todd understands how to build a team of A players both here in the U.S. and globally, having lived in Asia for 4 years. Let's welcome Todd to the show. Todd, good to see you.
Hey, Greg, good to see you.
Thanks for coming.
Yeah, my pleasure.
Have a seat.
Thanks.
All right, so I built you up there as one special guy, and you really are. So I'm looking forward to diving into this with you.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
All right, I get asked this question from my clients all the time. And the question is, Greg, what does it take to make the number? And my response is always this. It takes hiring A players and putting them into optimized performance conditions. And I believe that it's a 50-50 split, meaning 50% of the equation of consistently making your number is having great people, which we're going to talk a lot about today, and 50% of it is putting them into optimized performance conditions. And the reason why I feel that way is because I've seen C players go into optimized performance conditions and ruin them. Mm-hmm. I've seen A players go into non-optimized performance conditions and we ruin the talent. And it really takes the blending of the two. I believe that you do both very well, but I believe that you do the talent side of the equation exceptionally well. Not only what you're doing here at Rackspace, but what I've been able to learn about you through our conversations and your time at Microsoft as well. So this is a very big subject, building a team of A players. So I thought today we could break it down into kind of 3 main segments. So the first is the process of sourcing and recruiting. Okay, so that's kind of the front end of the process.
Right.
The second is, which is the middle of the process, is interviewing and selecting. And then third is onboarding this talent and then developing this talent throughout their career. So I thought we could break that down into those buckets, okay?
Sounds good.
All right. So let's jump into the first category here, which is sourcing and recruiting. Okay, so that sourcing and recruiting process, which defines what good looks like, it seems to be changing these days. There's social recruiting, there's all of these different ways to source talent, and defining what good looks like seems to be different today. In the intro, I mentioned that you did a quote the old way with Microsoft, and I don't mean to brand Microsoft as the old company, but they were the dominant player for a long time. And now you're doing it the new way with, at Rackspace, where you're ground central on the cloud. So how do you determine what you need from each individual role?
Yeah, it's a good question. And before I go into sourcing, let me just make a couple quick opening comments. Number one, thanks for having me. It's really, really good to be here. I'm a fan of your work and a fan of the company, so it's a privilege to be here. Number two, actually, I agree with everything you said with one exception. I think it's 51% talent, actually.
Okay,
and
I'll give you that
talent
1 point.
is just mission critical in my view. Any functional business success in the business world. I'm a big college football fan, and a lot of college coaches talk about you can't coach speed, and speed wins games. And I think it's the same in business, that talent is mission critical to win. So as it relates to sourcing, I think it's everyone's job to source, not just a sourcing and recruiting's team job. My philosophy is it starts with me, frankly, to always be recruiting. The old movie, Glengarry Glen Ross, the always be closing acronym and focus. I think it's always be recruiting is just as important. And it starts with me as the leader of our organization. And my expectation is the same for every other leader in our team as well, that we are all recruiting. Our networks are rich with opportunity to bring in talent into the organization. Outside of that, though, we're fortunate to have a really strong in-house recruiting team that uses a lot of innovative approaches to get access to talent, including some that you mentioned, using social networking. LinkedIn is just an outstanding tool to be able to get access to candidates, and our in-house recruiting team does that.
Right. And when you think about knowing what to go after, right? So I love this always be recruiting, and you view yourself as a recruiter, which is fantastic. You have to know what you want. You have to know what you're recruiting for, what good looks like. So how do you determine that?
Yeah, we have a talent management framework essentially in place, and the first couple pillars of that are planning and then hiring. The plan is critical to understand, what your revenue target is, what type of resourcing and capacity that you need, and then that dictates the types of job descriptions you need and what the ideal candidate profiles are. So we've spent some time building those out by job type, and that allows myself, every other leader in our team, and then most importantly, the recruiting team to know exactly the type of individual that we're looking for.
And these ideal job profiles is by role?
It is by role, exactly.
So for an organization like yours that's a fairly large company with lots of roles, there could be quite a few of these.
There are lots of different roles.
Yeah.
Lots of different job descriptions per role, and then a lot of different ideal candidate profiles associated with those job descriptions as well. As an example, for our enterprise sales force, we've built a very specific type of profile that is based on competencies, that is based on experience, and that is also based on alignment to our company values.
Interesting. So what do you say to the person that says, I don't have the time to build all these ideal candidate profiles?
Well, I think you say to that person that you should expect a low batting average on your success rate of bringing in folks. I think planning is the start of success. And look, you can over-engineer anything, and we certainly try to balance having a plan and having job descriptions, but also having freedom, and a little bit of art in a selection process too.
Interesting. So we're talking about the front end of the process right now, which is sourcing and recruiting, and what I have found is that the best people that you want to hire are never looking for a job.
Right.
So you have to proactively go out there and try to convince them to come to work for you, which is hard to do. I mean, it's almost as if like you're prospecting for new accounts or leads or something along those lines. So do you agree with that? Do you believe that the best people are those that aren't looking for a job?
In almost every situation, yes. There are certainly some anomalies where strong talent gets put into the marketplace for a variety of reasons, but passive candidates, without question, typically the highest and most targeted folks we go after.
And so how do you do that? I mean, because that's almost a forced behavior, right? I mean, you know that you're going to reach out to somebody who's successful, happily employed. You know you're going to be dealing with a rejection. but you have to force yourself to do it. So is this, when you say always be recruiting, is this something that is just part of you? Have you instilled this in everybody in your organization? I mean, how do you do that?
Just as you're going to market with a product or service, if you don't have a strong value proposition that's really clear, you're not going to be successful in the market. I think it's the same in recruiting. If you don't have a strong, clear value proposition for, level A talent in any company, I think you're going to struggle. So starting with myself, all of our leaders, it's really important that we understand what a value prop for an employee is, and ensuring that our recruiting team knows that as well. I'm a sales guy by nature, and I like my chances when I have a chance to sit down with a candidate and explain why I joined the company and why they should consider doing the same thing.
Yep. So that's interesting, a value proposition for each job.
Absolutely. I think there's a general value proposition for a career. At Rackspace, certainly that's the case. And then, specific jobs aligned to that general value proposition.
All right, let me hit you with some numbers. Okay, so our benchmarks say the following. It's about 150 resumes that are submitted for a job. 30 pass the initial screen. 8 pass the telephone interview. 4 get exhaustive, what we call top grading interviews, and 1 gets the job. Okay, so if you think about this as a funnel,
right,
150 to 30 to 8 to 4 to 1. Mm-hmm. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Are your numbers different than that or similar to that?
They're directional, and actually it depends by job. There's some job functions like systems engineers that there are fewer people in the marketplace that really are qualified to technically align to that job. Yeah. Whereas a seller, not that selling, being a quota carrier is any more difficult, but there's probably a broader portfolio of people that could align to that type of job. So as an example, a field sales executive for us, an enterprise focused leader, similar, we probably go through about 100 resumes 100? To get down to about 30 phone interviews that take us down to that's initial phone screens. To take us down to 15 phone interviews, gets us to about 5 in-person final interviews to 1 candidate.
Yeah. So those are pretty close. Mm-hmm. Yeah. In fact, the middle to the bottom funnel numbers are almost identical. The only difference is you start with 100 and we're starting about 150.
And the technical jobs will start with a much broader set at the top of the funnel in order to get down to that 1. We have a couple extra steps for technical hiring as well.
They have to prove their technical competence.
Correct.
Yeah, I got it. Interesting.
Correct.
Okay. Well, good stuff. All right, if you found this segment interesting and want to learn more about sourcing and recruiting A-player talent, check out the SBI magazine, where leaders like Todd share their best practices. We're going to take a quick break. After the break, Todd is going to tell you how he interviews and selects A players. So we'll be right back.
This is not a table. It is a stage where your performance is measured in numbers. If you reach them, you get an encore. If you don't, it could be curtains. That's why you need the well-rehearsed, proven sales and marketing strategies of SBI.
Welcome back from the break. My name is Greg Alexander. I'm the CEO of SBI, and you are watching SBI TV. I am joined today by Todd Cione, the Chief Revenue Officer at Rackspace. Before the break, we were discussing how to source and recruit a team of A players. During this segment, I would like to turn our attention to Todd's views on interviewing and selecting A players. You ready?
I'm ready.
All right. So at this point in our little use case here, we have a pipeline of qualified job candidates, and now we need to interview and select the right ones. And in our way of thinking, those are 2 distinct things. There's interviewing, which is gathering the information and then making a decision, is the selection part, okay? Mm-hmm. So one thing I've learned from you is your belief in competency-based interviewing. Mm-hmm. So tell the viewing audience here a little bit about how you do that.
Yeah, our assessment's really broken into 3 pieces. Competencies are one of them. In other words, the expected observable behaviors you want in a seller or a marketer. But in addition to that, experiences are important. And then thirdly, cultural alignment, and that's a big deal in our company. I think most companies will say that, aligning to the values of a company, but it's really important for us as well. So specific to your question about competencies, we look for people that can demonstrate behaviors. Collaboration is one of the most important in our model. Working with others, we cannot be successful working by ourselves. So we want to see an individual that can connect very successfully and help other people be successful as
Collaboration.
Well. Yeah, it's a big one.
Now, if I'm sitting in the audience and I hear that, that's one I haven't heard a lot of, which seems odd. I should hear that all the time, right? So how did you determine that collaboration was correlated to job performance?
Yeah, a couple things. I think, at least certainly in what we do at Rackspace and selling cloud services, gone are the days of an individual being successful working on their own. We have a pretty broad product and services offering, and so we have specialists, both as sales specialists and technical specialists, that a seller has to work with to be successful. We have contract administrators. We have legal resources that a seller has to work with to be successful. And if you cannot effectively communicate and collaborate with other people, essentially on a team, you're just not going to be successful. And we found that to be really, really clear in breaking down the types of people that are successful.
Yeah. So that's interesting. So what I heard from your answer there was collaboration is important because you have this very broad offering. The salesperson has to engage with subject matter experts, has to engage with support people like contracts people, et cetera. And if they're a lone wolf, so to speak, and they work on an island, then they're not going to be successful.
That's right. That's right.
But if I'm somebody in the audience and I have one product, and it's kind of a simple sale, maybe collaboration isn't a competency I need to test for.
Yeah, it might not. Everyone's got to evaluate what competencies are most important for their candidates. Yeah. I think another one that we look for, I heard a colleague mention recently, resiliency. Yeah. Someone just committed to winning regardless of what's going on in their environment. I totally agree that is a competency that a successful seller or marketer, for that matter, has to have.
Yeah. Because we're going to deal with a lot of rejection.
You are.
Even in marketing. I mean, email marketing campaign, you're doing great if you get a 3% click-through. So 97% of the time was failure.
Right.
Better be resilient.
That's
interesting.
Right.
All right, so we talked about competency-based interviewing. You added two other things to that, though, that I think was really insightful. So I think I understand the experience one. So just in the spirit of time here, talk to me about cultural fit, because you're right. A lot of people talk about that, but having worked with your company, and I know how strong your culture is, and to me it feels like there's certain people that will be rockers and certain people that won't. So how do you test for that, though?
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough. Look, I learned a long time ago, unfortunately the hard way, that I can coach performance. I can help people develop competencies. We can, over time, build experiences, but I can't coach values. I can't change somebody's values. Leopards don't change their spots. So trying to determine alignment of an individual's values to the company is a really important part of our evaluation process. We do it through questions. We do it through informal communication. We also do it through some testing. We use some formal testing to evaluate how a person actually goes about doing their job, what's important for them, how they look at the world.
Yeah. Let me ask this question on testing, and I'm a big believer in it, and there's several great ones out there. I've seen some of my clients recently engage in a thing called the work tryout. And basically what it says is this, is that you almost get hired on like a probationary period. In some industries, you can get away with not even hiring them, you just contract with them, for like 1099 labor kind of thing. And you define what success looks like in a time period. It's usually 90 days. And you give them the job. And at the end of the 90 days, if they've accomplished the objectives, then they become a full-time person. If they don't, then they're not. And the people that have done this have the circumstances that allow for that. But they also have a much higher success hiring rate. Because if you can work with somebody in a tryout situation for 90 days versus just a job interview, you can really see them. So have you ever experimented with that?
I haven't experimented with tryouts per se. We have implemented maybe something down that path around scenarios. So in the evaluation process, as an example, for our technical pre-sales technical resources that we hire, we put them through several scenarios. We actually ask them to go do research and come prepared to do a presentation on a fictitious architecture of a solution that they would be pitching to a potential customer or prospect. And it's very revealing what we find. in those scenarios.
Interesting. So it's almost like a simulated work tryout.
It is a simulation.
Yeah.
It is a simulation,
Very cool.
exactly.
Which allows you to basically get to the same essence, but maybe without the difficulty of doing a work tryout.
Correct,
Yeah,
correct. We do that with inside sales roles as well.
You do, yeah. All right, let's move on to reference checking, right? So this section we're talking about right now in terms of building a team of A players is interviewing and selecting, right? So at this point, you've progressed to someone did really well in the interview and you're thinking about selecting them and making them a job offer and you want to do reference checking. How do you do that?
We do reference checking at scale for all roles through a recruiting team, but actually very extensively for senior roles, director and certainly VP level roles that we bring into both sales and marketing. I myself personally get involved in VP level reference checks and just have conversations with individuals that are in candidates' background and just test on what we've learned, what the candidate's strengths are, where they particularly need to work potentially, and just test it. And it's often very revealing.
How do you get the list? Does the job candidate give that to you, or do you kind of find your own people that might know them?
Yes. So it's both.
Yeah.
I think there's certainly a proactive above the waterline references that we get provided by candidates, but we also certainly do back checking as well.
Yeah, you do. Yeah.
We do.
In today's world, the world is a very small place.
It is.
You only have one reputation.
It is.
And you better have some positive references.
You're right.
Yeah, because someone's going to call them.
Look, and if you make a hiring mistake, the implications are significant.
Yeah.
So taking some time to do reference checks, I think is important.
Yeah. Okay, so now it's time to make a decision. You have all this great information. You've done a very thorough interview. You've screened somebody on your 3 categories: experience, cultural fit, and competencies. You've done a simulation or a scenario, as you mentioned, and you've done some thorough reference checking. So now you got to process all this information and make a tough decision. You have hopefully 2 or 3 great A-player candidates for one job. How do you make the decision?
Yeah, that's where it comes down to, I think, some of the art. So we both use qualitative feedback throughout the process. We capture and we look for anomalies, both favorable and unfavorable anomalies, and we quantify as well. So we typically will evaluate on top 3 competencies, things like that, and try to have a numeric rating system that helps us benchmark candidates against each other as well.
So you quantify the qualitative through a numerical process?
Correct. As an example, just in terms of aggregation, for leadership roles, we typically will look for people leadership, business leadership, as well as thought leadership. And there are competencies that go along with those as well. But we typically will give a rating in those 3 categories, and all interviewers will do so as well. And it gives us a way to do some basic benchmarking.
Yeah. Otherwise, how do you do the comparison? You have 2 candidates, and quantifying the qualitative through some type of numerical score, even if it's a little subjective, it certainly aids in the decision process.
Correct. Yeah. Particularly when you have evaluations that extend, over the course of many weeks, and you're evaluating different candidates, it can be really difficult when you're relying only on qualitative input. Yeah. So we try to capture that and then use that in our evaluation final discussions.
So if you have this multi-week process, how do you remember all the information that happened a few weeks ago? Is there some type of document trail?
We do. We document it. Our recruiting team, fortunately, does a great job administratively on capturing all of the qualitative and quantitative feedback, as well as third-party inputs that we get as well for one overall candidate profile.
Yeah. I'm glad to hear that you do document it. It sounds like, an administrative task, and it is. However, it's really important because 2 years down the road, you're going to want to go back in time and say, okay, who was an A player, who wasn't? What did we miss in the process? Let's take out the documents, and for the mistakes, because nobody bats 1,000, for the mistakes that we made, how can we improve the process here? And you can only do that by having that documentation.
That's right.
It's interesting. So your example highlights how thorough this process needs to be. And you're an inspirational leader here in that you're always recruiting yourself, and you have value propositions to sell a company and sell a job, which is really cool. Let me ask you a question. I know you travel a whole bunch. You just came back from a long trip. I assume you never leave home without this.
That's right. I do not.
And in your life, do you have unproductive time, things like waiting in line, working out, commuting, things like that?
Every day.
And have you turned this little device here into a weapon that takes unproductive time to productive time by doing things like listening to podcasts?
I have information pushed to me on a daily basis.
Yeah, fantastic. So I'm bringing this up, obviously, because I want to encourage you, our TV audience, to subscribe to our podcast. Think of that as our radio channel. If you do, every week, you'll get to listen to a great interview like this one on key topics such as this one. So just go to salesbenchmarkindex.com/SBI podcast. Okay, we're going to take a short 30-second break. And when we come back, Todd and I are going to turn our attention to the final part of this process, which is onboarding and developing the talent. So stick around.
Your finish line is your number, and the only way to reach it is to make certain everyone is pulling their weight and headed in the same direction. That's why SBI uses proven techniques to bring everyone on your team on board with successful, standardized sales programs, enabling victory at the turn of every quarter.
Welcome back, everyone. I am Greg Alexander, CEO of SBI, and you are watching SBI TV. Today, my guest is Todd Cione, the Chief Revenue Officer at Rackspace. Before the break, I made you a promise, and that promise was to have Todd and I share with you how to onboard and develop talent, which is the last part of our building a team of A players process. So let's dive into these last two critical items, okay? So at this point in time, you have new blood on the team, so to speak, and the name of the game now is to get them productive quickly.
That's right.
And then develop them into the future leaders of your company over time, right? So how long does it take you to onboard A player talent?
Yeah, I hate to say it again, but it varies by role, by job type. You know, our inside sales team that are earlier career stage may be focused on down market and SMB. It's a 90-day period. Mid-market sales is probably 6 months. Enterprise, 9 to 12 months. The marketing team, it depends on the job function. Yep. Technical talent, usually 6 to 9 months as well.
Yep. And in your time at Microsoft with similar types of jobs, did you have the same type of onboarding process there in terms of length of time? Did it take roughly the same?
It did. Of course, you know, different company, different size, different maturity in the marketplace as well. You know, what we're trying to build a repeatable process at Rackspace now.
Yeah. So let's talk about that process. So what is the onboarding process?
Yeah, we have both an onboarding process and an ongoing career and development process as well. And they are similar, have three primary components. And it's learning through training, learning through relationships, and then learning through experiences. And we try to focus on each three of those as key components. And look, up front in an onboarding plan, there's a lot more training than we actually have later on in a development plan. But heavy training, making sure product knowledge and just getting things done for an individual's job is key. In addition to that, assigning a mentor, someone who is doing that job as a peer, successfully. We found that visually seeing and engaging with someone that does your job well is really important for onboarding. And then third, putting that individual into some experiences where they can see what's expected of them in action is really important as well.
So I love the mentoring concept. I've seen it work in a ton of places. Sometimes it doesn't work, and the reason why it doesn't work is because the person giving the mentoring says, I have a job to do. I have a number to make, and now you're asking me to mentor this person, you know, so kind of what's in it for me? Right. How do you get around that?
Yeah, I don't know that we do, to be really frank with you. I mean, doing it at scale is really difficult, right? We identify individuals that are good at their job, that have demonstrated consistent performance over time, and those are individuals that we want mentoring new people coming into the company. So we try to have some level of rigor around identifying who should mentor, and then we have some incentives in place for parts of our organization where we found it to be particularly helpful to make sure those mentors are actually mentoring. So there's some financial incentives we put in place.
Interesting. I've seen some people use incentives, but it's typically like, if I'm a player at this role and I want to get promoted, one of the things I have to do to get promoted is to mentor potentially my replacement before I can get promoted, right? So that's a different type of incentive, right?
That's right. Well, that's actually part, I'd say in our enterprise business, part of the rite to passage to manage is to be a successful mentor.
Yeah. So you mentioned that there were 3 parts of your onboarding process: training, relationships, and experience.
That's right.
Okay, so I love that answer. Is it the same team that owns that process from cradle to grave, or someone owns training, somebody owns relationships, and somebody owns experiences?
So it's managed as a program. So there's a program management function that sits in our sales enablement team, and they own it from soup to nuts. We have evolved over the last many quarters and few years to actually tuning the training portion by job. The needs of an SMB seller may vary to the needs of an enterprise seller. The needs of somebody in a global communications team may vary compared to the needs of somebody in a segment marketing team as well. So we've worked to modify that. But there are also consistencies that everyone that coming into the company goes through as well. Outside of the sales enablement team, our HR team actually owns the onboarding process for every Racker. Every Rackspace employee goes through kind of cultural indoctrination training. It's a 3-day period, and that's consistent for everybody.
Well, you guys have really thought this through.
Its values are important, and we want to make sure that those are consistent across jobs and geographies in the company.
Yeah. And sales enablement, is that their primary function, is onboarding, or do they do lots of other things as well?
So they are responsible for the early stage of a Racker joining the company, which is onboarding, and they also own the ongoing development for our sales and marketing Rackers as well.
So let's talk about that. So let's shift from, onboarding to ongoing development. So I'm going to ask you another unfair question, maybe give me some close enough answers, if you will. How long does it take for somebody to go from one job to the next to get promoted? Is that predetermined, or is it more opportunistic?
No, I think that's a fair question. It varies, but it's much more opportunistic. So there's, I think, extremes we want to avoid. We want to avoid too much churn. In jobs, people coming into roles and then moving on quickly to new roles, because you never get the full productivity out of that individual in that job. Right. But at the same time, we want to also have incentives for people to perform, demonstrate potential, and go on to something else as well. So we try to find that happy median. We actually have at minimum, a 1-year time and role before an individual can go on to another role.
You do 1 year?
We do. And that's actually relatively new, based on seeing so much churn in our company. We're a growth company. We're growing fast. There's lots of opportunity for career advancement in the company. But we really want that individual to demonstrate success, frankly, for them. We want them to feel good about what they're doing, demonstrate success before they go on to something else.
Have you ever heard of this system called the up or out system?
I have.
Yeah. And for the audience here, what this basically means is that you have kind of a pyramid of talent, and you have less experienced, maybe early career people coming at the bottom of the pyramid, and then they move up or they move out. And there's a predetermined time period. It's very often 2 to 3 years, and so it goes up the pyramid. And if you can't keep progressing, you're occupying a spot and you're clogging the channel. So the organization moves you out. And then if you can do it that way, because then the next group of talent is coming in, the idea there is you're perpetually, upgrading the talent in perpetuity to improve it. And there's lots of debate about this. It's used in some industries and others. Yeah,
you're right.
So I don't know if I agree with it or not. I'm kind of a fence sitter on this. I think it's situational. What's your opinion on it?
Yeah, it is very interesting. So I grew up professionally in my career operating in an environment much like that, of forced attrition in order to create spots for top performers. And I'm not, I don't think, a fan of quotas on attrition. But look, as a sales and marketing leader, I think attrition is a healthy thing. And we want to minimize the bad attrition, folks that are performing that we want to retain, and we want to make sure that we have a decent amount of positive attrition. Those that aren't performing need to move on to demonstrate to everybody the expectations. Now, I also expect managers to be exporting talent. I think one hallmark of an outstanding leader is someone that not only can attract, develop, and retain talent, but someone also that exports talent within the company, of course. But that is really, really important, I think, for strong managers, because you're really demonstrating that you are a talent factory, if you will.
Yeah, which is the job of a manager.
That's right.
Right. So that takes me to my last question on this part, which is career advancement, development over time. Is it the manager's responsibility? Is that who owns that process? Because you have a formal process. Or is that a blend between sales enablement, the manager, HR? Who owns it?
Yeah, so the career advancement and also development process. I had some feedback a long time ago that I've taken with me in my career. When I was an initial seller, I had a manager that I respect very much to this day tell me, Todd, you own your career development. Ooh. You own it. Now, I believe that to be true. The person that you see in the mirror every day owns development and owns career advancement. Now, there are two other components to a successful equation, and that is the manager of the individual should be a coach. Engaged, inspiring, accountable coach. And then the organization provides the third portion, and that is access to resources, access to training, other relationships, experiences that will help develop me and help my manager use resources to get me to the role that I aspire to.
Yeah. Well, listen, we're at our time window here, but it's not a surprise to me that you've had the career that you've had, and I expect great things from you going forward. You are an exporter of talent. You practice what you preach, and it's a rare leader, marketing or sales, that can articulate with the level of depth that you have the process that you use to build a team of A players. I hope you know that. So thanks for coming on the show and contributing to our field. I really appreciate it.
Well, thanks for your comments, and it's a privilege to be here.
Great. I would also like to thank you, our viewers, for tuning in. If you enjoyed this show, I suggest you subscribe to SBI TV. And you can find that in two places. First is salesbenchmarkindex.com/TV, or you can find us at our SBI YouTube channel. We have some outstanding guests confirmed for future episodes that you will not want to miss. So until then, I wish you the best of luck as you try to make your number.